how you guys have been doing in the last couple of days, 2 or 3 days. And if you experimented with a new anchor, which was listening, right? Yeah, just curious to hear. Simone, are you feeling better today?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Nice.
You were talking about finding the stillness within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was paying all of my attention onto the sounds, and then I came back to myself, then I discovered that it was still, that my attention wasn't anywhere else. Yeah. So I got what you were saying.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so simple, because it's just that the energy that we otherwise would drift away and thinking is just directed towards the perceiving, the perceptual experience. So it's quite easy, actually. It's such a nice way to discover, oh, I can really be present. Look at that. I become so quiet without any effort, without any doing, because anyway, the ears are always open, no? Unlike the eyes, we can close them, and then if we want to see, we have to open them. But the ears are always in a receptive mode, 24/7. So it's not even a doing, really. It's just happening anyway. It's more like, where do I put my attention, to the present moment, which includes sounds around me, or I can move into my virtual reality in my mind and travel away from this moment. It's the same energy, it depends where we directed it. Yeah. Great. Glad. I'm happy you had that taste. Beautiful. Who else would like to share something? Yeah, Nadine, let me give you the mic.
Yes, for me, when I was in my room and it's much more quiet because there's not so much traffic in these days. I could really hear my neighbors, just moving about and and even the sound of voices, not what they said, but sound of voices. And suddenly I felt so close to them.
Nice.
More than when I see them in the lift or in the garden or wherever.
Yeah.
I felt really close without. I felt more the energy than when I see them. There's a lot of social things interfering, say.
Right.
But and also I was on the balcony and I could hear all the birds, the different songs, and I felt really at one point, I felt the silence between them and me.
Mm-hmm.
I could still hear them, but I could feel also the silence in between.
Yes, beautiful.
And for me also, for many years, I had trouble sitting in meditation. It's walking meditation is fine, but sitting was really difficult. I was too restless, but now I feel it's coming more and more easy. And what I like is this pause idea. Just sitting maybe 2-3 times a day for 10 minutes when it comes up, not forcing. And then I find that I'm really fine. I don't get this restlessness anymore.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
it comes really at a good moment for me.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah, you cover many things. That last one you said is very important to underline, that we have to make sure we don't make meditation into something rigid that I have to do, another thing that we have to do. We have enough things that we are doing, right? It's actually supposed to be a non-doing.
Yeah.
So, and it should be effortless, and it should be pleasant, should be something you enjoy.
Yeah.
So if we make it into too much of a discipline or something that is too rigid, I have to do it, it's already starting with the wrong foot, no?
Yeah.
So it's very important to just do what you feel like doing, even in terms of practice, yeah? So it doesn't have to be 1 hour, it can be 5 minutes. If that's what you feel, And when people are starting to meditate and they ask me, oh, what kind of practice shall I do? And I said, just start with whatever is comfortable. Start with 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes. If it feels comfortable to you and beyond that is not, do 10 minutes. If then those 10 minutes feel so good that you go like, oh man, that felt so good, I want to sit longer, then sit longer, then sit 20 minutes. And then maybe those 20 minutes feel like, oh man, I want to stay more in that space because it feels so good. But that grows organically, then it's a joy. The sitting becomes a pleasure, something you enjoy doing. It's not like I have to sit. So yeah, that's a very good point. Whatever is comfortable, whatever gives you joy, if it's 2 minutes or 2 hours, it doesn't matter. Do what works for you in this moment. And also remembering that mindfulness is not only when we sit, but when we move around the house. Yeah, to bring that same quality of attention to every gesture, For me in this moment, bringing the attention to hearing my voice coming out, hearing it reverberating in my chest and my throat, feeling my hands that is moving as I talk, This is all part of mindfulness in this moment for me. So we're talking about every moment can have the same quality. It all depends on us, and not only when we sit. So then instead of 10 minutes meditation, it becomes 16 hours meditation, right? When we are awake, we can bring that same quality to washing dishes and cooking a meal and listening to our neighbors. That was a beautiful thing you said too. It reminded me of an experience I had that when I used to live I spent more time in Hawaii and I had a recording studio there. I was also living in the countryside in a very quiet place, and it was beautiful, silent, perfect for making music and recording. And then these people moved just behind my house, and a new family, and they had like 6 dogs. And they were all outside in a little cage going crazy. So they were going crazy and I went crazy because basically I was there recording in the middle of this really delicate process, of listening to sounds, recording the right notes, and suddenly they would start barking right behind my windows. And it was so loud that it would get into my microphone and I had to stop working. And that went on and on and on for months and months and months. And it was very challenging for me to not put any judgment on the barking, on all the sounds. As we said, part of the listening meditation is do not judge the sounds that you perceive. I was so pissed. There was no way I couldn't judge those dogs and my neighbors for having the dogs, mainly because I couldn't work. Okay, it's understandable, yeah. But the interesting thing is that when I was here in Italy a couple of years ago, and I was also sitting in the countryside, and I was just sitting there in the sun, meditating, sitting quietly, listening to the sounds of the birds. And then this dog started barking not far away. And I had this beautiful experience where I had no judgment of being a nasty sound in that moment at all. And I just included it in my perception together with the birds, the wind, the leaves on the trees rustling, and the dog barking. And I listened to the dog with such acceptance. And I had this feeling that I could feel how he was feeling, you know, much like what you say with your neighbors, you could feel them. In the moment, I realized in the moment I have no judgment towards that sound. So in other words, there's no resistance at all. I let the sound penetrate me, and I also penetrate the source of the sound, you know. So I could feel the dogness, you know, I could feel what it was like to be that dog in that moment, and you know, and why he was barking, and how proud he was that he was barking, and how good he was feeling about himself. And this whole thing, you know, it started this relationship in that moment between me and this dog. It was amazing. It came to my mind because of what you said, you know, that you could feel your neighbors just through listening to the sounds of them moving around the house. I exactly know what you mean. That's a beautiful thing. So yeah, very important, not to use sounds, and to remember it's only our disliking or disliking that a certain sounds that creates a resistance. Or let's say it's our resistance to a certain sound that creates the disliking it, you know, and vice versa. Because suddenly it's like we put up a wall and the sound bounces on this wall that we created. But if we don't have a judgment, we don't create a resistance, these sounds just travel through us, and there's nothing fighting against it. It just goes through. And then we can even merge with that sound, and we can even go deeper than that in feeling the source of the sound. Yeah, beautiful. So thank you for the sharing. That was nice. And also perceiving the sounds and the silence, very important. Yeah. Thank you for the sharing. Today, I wanted to introduce you to another anchor. It's actually going to be the last one for this series, because the next, we work only on 4. And the anchor of today is regarding the inner space. So when I often say, you know, even in the guided meditation, oftentimes I use this words. I say, feel the inner space. What is this inner space, and how can we feel it? It's not, it's we're talking about a very subtle dimension, yeah? It's not always easy. And I've been feeling into that as like, okay, how can you help people to feel this, and how could you explain it? And I came across some interesting tips, let's say, that helped me understand how to help other people feel it. And the first one was listen to Osho talking about commenting on one of the meditation on the Vigyambara Tantra, which is a very ancient book text, an ancient tantric text that it's basically a book that includes a story of Shiva talking to Parvati, which is his partner, and Parvati asking him questions about meditation and him answering and giving all these different meditation techniques. So the whole book includes 108 meditation techniques that Shiva explains to Parvati. And Osho took it out and started commenting and explaining to us almost each of these techniques and just kind of simplify them, because sometimes they were a little bit hermetic for us to understand, and explain them in very simple language and helping us to practice them. So, but one of these techniques is about filling the inner space. And so that was really, when I read it, was like, ho, this is what I was looking for. And then later on, a few years later, I came across the teachings of Eckhart Tolle. And he, which you probably know, is one of the contemporary, very important teachers and mystics. And he talked about it as the inner body. Same thing, though. It's the same thing. And he also explained a little bit how, somebody asked him, well, what would you recommend as a practice to do daily, on what's, and he said, well, I don't know, I don't have technique, but if I could say I give you one thing, I said, if you manage to feel your inner body and remaining aware of that, that would be sufficient, he said, So he also put a lot of emphasis on this. So today in the guided meditation, we work on that. How to feel this inner space or inner body. And why is it important? Well, because this inner space is where everything is perceived. Everything we perceive, everything we experience, it's experienced in this inner space, right? From a sound of our neighbors or a dog barking, the object might be outside of my physical body, but the experience of that sound, what I perceive, is inside the inner space, right? And the same goes for everything else. Whatever I see, it's perceived in this inner space. Every thought I see passing by, it's perceived in the inner space. Every emotions I feel arising, it's arising in that space. Every feeling I have, it's perceived in that space. So maybe we could also say, well, then this inner space is consciousness. Yeah, you could say that too. It's this container within which we experience everything. Every experience arises, exists, and passes. Yeah, everything comes and goes within this inner space. So in a way, when you start realizing that, and the more you tune into that, you start, the borders, the confines between inner and outer start becoming a little blurred. Because then it's like, well, is this out or in? Maybe it's both, and maybe there is no difference. That's why a lot of the mystics say, well, whatever you are, the world is. Yeah, many mystics used to say that. Krishnamurti used to say that a lot. Whatever you are, the world is, and there's no transformation of the world unless you transform yourself first. Because also the perception that we have of the world is dependent on how empty or crowded this inner space is, in what state is our inner space. Because if it's crowded with a lot of belief system, for example, if it's crowded from a lot of a conceptual mind and concepts, then whatever we perceive is going to be filtered by that. So, to make a silly example, but very simple, I might, what I was saying before, I might hear a dog, and in that moment it's very disturbing to me. And so I place a lot of judgment on that barking dog, and it becomes something, I hate that dog, right? And it can be the same dog, but I'm in a different state of inner state where there is no fight, no resistance. And suddenly that sound is not disturbing at all. On the contrary, I can really feel that dog and feel the love for the dog because I know how he feels, right? But it's the same dog. But my inner state is different, right? And that goes for everything we perceive. There is a beautiful meditation I usually do in the retreat at Mandali and in other places, where unfortunately I cannot do it with you, but maybe one day we will sit together in a room in a physical form, and I take people out for a walk in nature, and I ask them, okay, look at nature and see if you can just look without letting your conceptual analytical mind coming in, analyzing what you're seeing. In simple ways. For example, you look at this tree and it's like, wow, what a beautiful tree. Now there's a beautiful tree standing there and something really touches you, in that moment that you see it, it's like, it touches you and you become quiet. There's a moment of no mind. In that moment of no mind, it's like you feel the awe for the beauty that you're witnessing, right? Or it can be a sunset or anything else. In that moment, you experience a gap, a pause, a moment of no mind. Then the mind goes like, wow, what a beautiful tree. Well, what tree is it? Oh, it's an oak tree. Yeah, it's an oak tree. And suddenly that awe and that experience that you were having, that communion with the tree you were having, it disappears, it fades away because you started defining it. The analytical mind started coming in and say, it's a tree, it's an oak tree. And you remove all the magic that you were perceiving in that moment. You don't feel the tree-ness anymore. You just see an oak tree. You see a word almost rather than the tree itself. You don't feel it. You don't feel that tree anymore. That is because we are starting to filter our perception through our conceptual mind. I'm saying this because of what we said before, that the way we perceive the world depends on how our inner space is. So the more empty it is, the more I perceive everything as it is. Yeah. So in utter silence and stillness and emptiness, I perceive life as is. Yeah. Or I perceive reality with a capital R. So the less mind, the less ego there is, the more I get closer and closer to, let's call it the existential truth. Yeah. Existence itself. It's the very nature of existence. And vice versa, the more my space is crowded by thoughts, by preconceived ideas, by belief system, all that comprises the ego, that forms the ego, becomes a hindrance. They become all filters that are between my perception and reality and existence and life. So practice of mindfulness and meditation is about helping us to empty it out a little bit so that this space can be more receptive, more empty, and more clear, transparent. So we can actually perceive what is for what is. Mindfulness in action, I was saying, well, you can be aware of how you move your hand, or you can be aware of how you wash dishes. To every little act, how you brush your teeth in the morning, or how you wash your face, what does that do is emptying that space, because suddenly you put all your attention just in the gesture, in the movement itself. You're not thinking about the movement, you're feeling it. You're just present with that movement. And what that does, it also clears that inner space from unnecessary thoughts. And so if we practice that kind of mindfulness on a regular basis, both when we sit, but also when we move around, what happens is that two things happens. One is the space becomes more transparent, more clear, more empty, more quiet. And you can see, I like the image of a surface of a lake. Yeah. If there is a lot of wind and a lot of ripples on the surface of the water, the surface does not reflect the sky and the clouds above, right? And those, imagine your thoughts and all your emotions and all your ego is creating constant ripples inside. And when you become quiet and silent and there is a stillness, then the water becomes like a mirror-like, and it reflects. Then it reflects what it's above. You can also imagine that inner space like that. The more quiet we are, the more consciousness starts reflecting what is rather than distorting what is, like the ripples and the waves. The second thing that mindfulness does is that it helps slowly to crystallize. That's the word I like to use. Crystallize this witness, this sense of witnessing consciousness, which we're not so used to, but through practice, it becomes more and more obvious. Because witnessing consciousness is a word, but it's like, okay, but what does it feel like? It takes a little while to feel it inside. What is it that we're talking about? And once you get it and you start practicing witnessing, that becomes more and more crystallized, both in sitting and in movement. And so at a certain point, it becomes very tangible, this very ungraspable thing, which is the witnessing consciousness, becomes more obvious to us, more and more crystallized. And at a certain point, you go like, well, now I know. This is who I am, the witnessing consciousness. And this is what I'm witnessing, which is my thoughts, for example, my emotions, any perception that arises within consciousness, any sounds that I perceive, any feeling, any body sensations, everything is perceived inside this big space, this container, which is consciousness, and I am witnessing all these experiences, which are objects, arising, existing, and disappearing. So when my witness is crystallized, it's very clear there is a witness that is a subject, and there is an experience, which is the object. So I am not the experience. I'm not anything that I'm experiencing. Those, they come and go. And the witness always remains. It's the only thing that never changes. Everything else changes, comes and goes, constantly changing. Beautiful, everlasting movement and change. So mindfulness helps us to crystallize that sense of being the observer, being the subject, and not being all these things that are happening, the experiences and the perceptions. Okay, I don't want to scare you now, going too deep here. Let's move into the guided meditation. Now, I think I gave you a good introduction. The thing I will ask you to do is the first thing, it's something that maybe is not super easy, which is going to be to feel the skin of your body, the skin that is covering your body. So I will guide you through that. But if it's not easy, if you cannot feel it sometime the way I'm asking you, maybe you can imagine it. Sometimes you can imagine it, sometimes you will feel it, and anything in between, don't worry. If you can't feel it, then imagine it. And then maybe through the imagination, you're going to start feeling it. So it's all going to flow. Okay? And I will ask you to sit in a comfortable position with your straight back. And starting with the palm of your hands facing upward. So just lean your hands in a comfortable position on your legs or wherever, with the palms upwards. Closing your eyes, bringing the attention in. Starting with scanning the body very quickly, relaxing any little tension that might still be there. Feel with every out breath that you're releasing little tensions that are still there. With every out breath, you relax more, you become more empty. And you might also feel with every out breath that you're sinking a little more into the cushion or into the floor or into the couch, wherever you're sitting. And with every out breath, you sink more, you relax more, you let go a little more. Allowing the earth to pull you towards itself. Now I ask you to bring your attention to the palms of your hands and to feel them. How does the skin of the palm of your hand feel? How does it feel? You might feel a little coolness, temperature, cool, or maybe warm. You might feel a little tingling, maybe. What does it feel like? Stay with that feeling. Skin of the palms of your hands. This is one of the easier, more sensitive part of the body to feel, easier to feel. Stay with that feeling and include the back part, the bottom of part of your hands now, the one that is resting on your legs. Can you feel the skin where the hands touch your legs or whatever surface they're on? So you feel the skin on the palms and also on the back, the whole hands. Very good. Now bring your attention to your face. And I'll ask you, can you feel the skin of your forehead? Maybe it can be relaxed, maybe it feels a little tight, maybe it feels a little dry, or maybe not, maybe moist. What does it feel like? And between the eyebrows, and around the eyes, the eyelids touching each other. And the skin around your mouth and your lips touching each other. The skin of your cheeks and the ears and the nose. And the scalp and the neck. Can I feel the skin of the whole head now as a whole, as a one perception? Very good. Now I ask you to move your attention to your feet. Can you feel the skin on the bottom of your feet? Maybe a tingling there too, maybe different temperature. And include the rest of the foot also in that perception. Can you feel the skin of the whole foot? Both feet. Maybe I feel where the skin, where the foot is touching the floor or the cushion. And now bring their attention to where your weight is on your butt cheeks, where you're sitting on. Can you feel the skin there that is pressed by the weight of your body against the cushion? Feel the skin there too. Now see if you can connect your butt cheeks skin all the way to the feet and anything in between, including the skin of your thighs, the knees, the calves. From your hips down, feel the skin. And then from the hips up, the skin of the upper torso, of the chest, and the back, shoulder and arms, connecting the hands to the head and anything in between. Until we feel the skin of the whole body as a whole. Try to really sense it. Don't think about it, but feel it. Feel the skin that covers the whole outer perimeter of your physical form. That's the limit, the outer edge of your physical form. What does it feel like? Now start moving your attention to the space that this skin is enclosing. This perimeter of our body is the edge. It's enclosing an inner space. Almost as if you were a vase or a pot, empty inside. Or maybe a leather bag or a skin sack. Just feel the edge, the skin defining your physical form and enclosing a certain space. Perceive it as space. In this inner space, in the center of it, you might find a movement, the movement of your breath. As if it's floating there, Observe the movement of the breathing happening by itself, floating in this inner space. Without tampering with the breath, just letting it be natural and relaxed. Moving within this inner space. You might notice some outer sounds and the sound of my voice. All sounds are also perceived inside this inner space. Is this empty, silent space where I perceived all sounds and where I perceive the breathing happening. And you might notice other sensations, subtle moods or feelings. Also arising within this inner space. You might witness thoughts arising. You might even drift away a little bit with the thought, and then when you notice it, you just come back, bring your attention back to the space, to the inner space where that thought originated. Resting in the space again. The space between two thoughts, between two sounds, between two different sensations. This space is your center. This space is where you experience everything. You might notice how every thought, every sensation arises, it exists for a little while, and then it disappears again. You might notice like every experience comes and goes in a subtle, constant change, movement. How everything we experience is impermanent. In constant mutation, constant change. But this space remains the same. This empty inner space never changes. The space itself is the container of all experiences that pass through like clouds in the sky, getting formed, moving, disappearing. But the blue sky remains. That's the inner space. It's always the same. And there's one more thing you might notice that does not change is your witnessing. Your sense that you are observing all that arises and passes. You are the perceiving consciousness, the witnessing consciousness. That also never changes. It's always there. You might even notice that when there is no object, no clouds in the inner sky, no experiences, when there's just space and nothing to witness, then the witness and the space are the same, are one. The witness merges into the space. Until another sensation, another perception arises, maybe another thought. the sound. And again, witnessing all that is perceived, all that arises within the space. Without any judgment and any preference, experiencing everything as is. And I ask you now to take your attention to your breathing, to the breathing again. The breath that is happening in the center of this space. Feeling the air coming in and going out. And moving your attention again to the skin of your hands. And the skin of your feet. Maybe start trying a little movement of the fingers and toes, and slowly coming back. you're ready, you let your eyes open. That was a nice journey, I think. Let's see. Who is ready to share a few words about how was it? Was it easy to feel the space? Did it help to start from the skin? How was it for you? Malkior, was it easy to feel the space? How was it for you?
Yeah, I feel sensations of warm glow in my hands, in my body,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, really strong sensations throughout my whole body, and yeah, I really felt the inner body, the inner space, and wow, it
Nice.
became for me till a point I was feeling sort of, I won't say uncomfortable, but I was really going really deep.
Yes.
I was almost yeah, uh, not feeling my body anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it felt really beautiful, but yeah, was feeling also a little bit uncomfortable with how far I could go. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because the more we move towards the center, the more the periphery goes further away, right? So the process here, we move from the periphery, which is the skin, the outer layer, the embodiment, our body, the edge of our body, and then we move towards this inner space. So we move from the physical body to the energy body, from form to formless. And then if you go deeper in that energy body, there are other bodies, if you want to call them, but there are other layers as you go deeper and deeper. And the deeper you go, the further away you go from the first body. So you start feeling like, whoa, I can't even feel my body anymore. And it can feel it, so if you're not used to it, it can feel a little uncomfortable or scary. It's like, whoa, this is a big space. Where am I going here? And the mind starts coming in like, wait, hold on, okay, let go one hand, but keep holding with the other one because you don't know the space. So mind is very uncomfortable with what it doesn't know, of course. So yeah, beautifully said. And yeah, but with practice, it gets easier and easier. Eh? We become comfortable with this because also that's what meditation is about, to explore the formless. Because what are we? If we are consciousness, what is consciousness? Consciousness is like poof, thinner than air, right? So we are exploring a world that has no form and that we're not that familiar with. So in the beginning, it's pretty uncomfortable, but fascinating and worth exploring because it opens up different worlds, different experiences, different dimensions. Definitely worth the risk. And yeah, sometimes you'll see big waves coming and it looks like they're gonna crash you, but you can actually ride them. So you can just ride on top of them. Don't worry. Beautiful, yeah. Who else wants to share something? Mickey?
Yes.
How was it for you?
It was wonderful. At first, I was aware of feeling my skin, so it was perhaps more consciously. And I was amazed at I felt the texture and how many textures there are with the whole body. They're all different.
Yes.
And then when with going into the inner body, also, like Melchior said, I lost my body. It was like, I'm not my body anymore. I'm not me. That I disappeared. So,
Yes.
and there it was like, I have to make a decision as, do I go with the flow or not? And I did go with the flow, and something strange happened. It was like, I can't tell you where because it's not a place, but there were some colors maybe behind my eyes. So it's strange. I don't really have the vocabulary to describe what I experienced, but there were some colors like a kaleidoscope, in blackness, coming and going, and I just let it be. So I don't know where that came from. And then when I heard your voice again, obviously I came back.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful experience. Really, I have, for me, I feel like my body has ants everywhere. Ants moving in my body everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Tingling.
Tingling. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And when you decided to let go and then you were perceiving some colors, was it a sense of, was it peaceful?
Yes.
So you felt good, yeah?
I had a moment, perhaps of thought of scariness, but it was too good. And so I allowed it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing that happens with in meditation too, what you just described, that apart from colors or not, I mean, some people are visual, some people don't see anything. Like I'm not very visual, for example. Some people see colors and lights. Some people don't see anything at all, but they experience something nevertheless. Experience is different for everybody. There's no right and wrong. There's no rules. There's no standards, just to remember that we are the one witnessing, so that you are the one seeing the color or seeing the blackness or feeling the space or sensing anything that arises, that comes and goes. That's part of the practice, crystallizing more and more in the witnessing consciousness. That's what we are, and that what never changes. Everything else comes and goes. In a way, meditation, it's also, that's why they say meditation is a preparation to death, or a life lived well prepares you to die, because death is the uttermost let go, release from form. Yeah, definitely we have to release everything. Our body is gonna go, we moved out, we move into a different dimension, obviously, into the formless. So people that have been meditating and exploring how to be present in their life in different ways, they usually die very beautifully and very peacefully. And death, that passage between one dimension and the other, it becomes, from what I've been told, because I am still alive, it can be quite blissful and can be an orgasmic actually experience. Or it can also be difficult and troublesome and with a lot of resistance. And, if one is not used to letting go, if one is not used to if one is not familiar with that, a dimension of space, of inner space, it might be very scary, to let go. Or if you're familiar with it, if you practice, then it might be just like drinking a cup of tea. Beautiful passage, very easy, moving into an incredible, amazing, blissful space. So it all depends. Again, in the same way how we perceive the outer world, we were saying, it depends on our inner space. And the moment we pass, it's going to be the same. What we experience is going to be a reflection of who we have become, and what inner state are we in that moment. And I wanted to add something about what you said at the end before, that it felt there was a little thought of fear that was arising, but it felt so good that it didn't catch, because the good feeling was much stronger than the thoughts that was trying to poke through, right? Wait, where are you going? No, you shouldn't be afraid. This is something you don't know. Don't go there. Hold on. And you were so blissed out that it's like, shut up, come on. And it disappeared.
Leave me alone.
And that's a beautiful thing that happens in meditation, where we'll go through spaces of, my gosh, so many thoughts today, coming and going. Okay, can I be quiet a little bit, And then you're quiet a little bit, and then other thoughts come and go, a lot of traffic sometimes not much. It always changes. And then by grace, suddenly there is more presence, more sense of presence, more space. The space is more spacious. You start becoming still. There's a stillness that settles in slowly. It feels good. You start feeling your body like a statue after a while, more and more like a mountain that does not move. Beautiful. Cultivate that feeling. Let it happen. The stillness. Let it settle in. And then after the stillness, you will start perceiving energy, kind of, or sensations moving, through the body. Maybe you will feel your belly more. And from the belly, maybe it might move, you feel more your head. Whatever happens. But it's the energy moving through that in stillness starts being very active, and also we start perceiving it more, and it always feels good. It's a space of no mind. When we connect with the energy body, usually the mind becomes very quiet, because that feels so good. It's a good, peaceful sense of beingness, It's just like, oh yeah, finally, let me rest here now for a while. And then that takes over. That is at its own magnetism, it has its own strength that keeps you present. So it actually supports you without any effort in being present. And the mind tries sometimes to poke in, and it's like, it's like tiny ants. You're like, go away. Let me bliss out here. Let me be in this space because it's so pleasant, it's so peaceful. So that's a beautiful thing that happens when we allow that stillness to settle in, is that something takes over that is beyond us, actually. It's the whole, whatever it is, energy, Shakti. It really supports us. Then at that point, something clicks, and it becomes very easy to be present. And the mind, some thought comes and goes still, but very little traffic and a lot of peace and space, which is held by this energy, which is beautiful when that happens. It's a space to cherish, definitely. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was nice. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, the tantric approach, it's exactly that, where you use the body, you use everything, all the perception, all the physical manifestations of life, it's used to perceive the formless. And that's what I love about it. Basically, unlike many other spiritual traditions or religions that have been pushing away the body as either like, well, you're not that anyway, your consciousness, forget about the body, you know, or religions like, you know, Catholic or others that like the body is dirty or it's sin, or, you know, it's something that almost to be ashamed of. I mean, come on, are you kidding me? Yeah, there has been such a try to control in a way the life force, the natural life force that people have through denying the body first. And that comes with senses, with sexual energy, repressing the sexual energy. So there has been a constant work on the side of especially institutionalized religions to actually squash your life force down so that you're weak and small, and we're going to help you. And then you're very easily controlled. Well, without going too deep into that, the tantric approach is really like everything is sacred, form and formless, you know, and that's the beauty of it. And so senses, for example, are not something, you know, a lot of spiritual traditions say, oh, don't get identified with your senses, what you perceive, you know, that's Maya, that's illusion. And the tantrics say, no, perceive it in its totality, enjoy, you know, enjoy the perception, because a sense is a doorway, you know, senses are there for us to perceive the outer reality and to function and to move through space. Beautiful. But they are a doorway, and so in a doorway you can go from inside to outside and go to perceive the outer world, and then you can stop, turn around, and walk in too, right? It's an opening. It's not a one way. So we can use senses like a two-pointed arrow, and you can use the perception to perceive the perceiver, also the inner space. What is perceiving all this? So it's a beautiful thing. The more attention, more presence we put into perceiving the outer, the more that energy is reflected back. And we start perceiving also the observer. It's a beautiful phenomenon that happens. Osho gave us a meditation once. He said, sit down and wherever you are in a garden and look at a rose flower or whatever flower you have there. Just look without even letting your analytical mind think rose. Don't even think about the word. Just look. What is this thing? Just look at it, you know, and disappear in the looking. Just be simply there, completely there. And then at a certain point, he said, switch it and imagine that the rose is looking at you. Yeah. And practice that and then tell me what happens. And it took me years to understand what he was trying to point to, but it's exactly that. When you look, what I said before, when you look with a lot of presence, with intensity, and you're just there, you look at a tree, at a sunset, at a mountain, at a flower, it doesn't matter what, another person, then that tree reflects it back to you. That energy turns also. You start perceiving yourself looking. You know, you see the tree and somehow you also see in your inner eye, you see yourself looking. So you're both included in that experience. It's a strange thing, but beautiful experience. Which is like to say, yeah, now the tree is looking at you. You could also say that, you know, that's a poetic way to express that, which was beautiful. All right, that's about senses. And On this note, I'll let you go. Practice in the next 3 days this inner space anchor and tell me how it felt afterwards. Yeah. When you sit, but also when you move around, when you wash the floor or wash the dishes, make your bed, cook a meal, talk to someone. See if you can remain aware whenever you remember of this inner space and see what happens. Okay, guys, it all is very, very nice to be with you. Thank you for listening so patiently with so much presence.